Hello, I'm Sarah Mandell. I'm the brains and busy hands behind Once Again Sam. It's a small handmade business in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm an instructor with Greenville Center for Creative Arts. Periodically I teach needle felting, and that's what I'm going to do a demonstration of today since all of our classes are put off for the time being. The raw material that I work with for needle felting is wool. So this is dyed sheep roving. So you can see it's very, very thin, and it's been cleaned and carded once it's been taken off of the sheep. And so I get it already dyed. I don't dye it myself. This is already a pretty time-consuming craft, so I take this one shortcut. And the substrate I'm using is a piece of 100% wool. So it looks like craft felt, but it's actually a little bit higher quality. It's it's wool fabric that you get by the yard, just like any other fabric. And I really like it because it kind of allows me to work into the wool, and it grabs the material well, and at the end I can iron it, which is nice. It doesn't melt away like the craft felt would. So that's why those are the two materials. It's just roving and wool fabric. And the only tool that you need is a barbed felting needle. So you probably can't see anything here, but there's little hooks on the edge of the needle, and so every time you poke down, it pulls the fabric or the roving down. And it's just a lot of little pokes over and over again onto the fabric substrate. So what I mostly like to do is landscapes. This is an example of a smaller piece. This is all done with that roving. It's just layers and layers, just like you would with a painting. You would do like an underpainted color, and then you'd go back over it and layer and add more details. So that's what I'm going to try to make here fairly quickly for you. I always start at the top. And that is just, no reason for that. That's just the way I do it. I start with the sky, and I'm just starting to poke the fiber in. And I'll warn you, it looks pretty messy for a while. It doesn't really start to look like anything until much later. But you can kind of see how it builds up over time. So I'm just adding a little bit more, lots of little thin layers like this. You wouldn't want to add on like a huge piece like that. It would just be a lumpy mess, and it would be very frustrating. So I try to go with very thin layers, and I always tell my students that to just go a little bit at a time. And I'm just smoothing it down and kind of filling in some bare patches and trying not to poke my finger. The needle is super sharp, and that does happen periodically, but I'm going to try not to do that today in front of you all. I'm going to use so this is a holder that has 4 needles in it, and it's the same barbed needles, same felting needles as the single, but it just allows me to cover a little bit more ground a little bit faster. And I'm using a 38 gauge spiral needle today. It's kind of a medium weight needle. There are other gauges. They go from very fine to pretty coarse, but I actually just use a 38 gauge. I don't really switch it to anything else. The really fine needles tend to break, and the really coarse needles tend to leave giant holes. So I have just found a happy place with those medium weight needles. One little bare patch up here I'm gonna fix. All right, so you can see I've kind of got like the undercolor for the sky. And now I'm going to add a lighter color over top to sort of create like a gradient. So this is a different shade of blue, and I'm going to go really thin. So I'm actually kind of pulling it apart with my fingers first. Kind of save myself a little bit of trouble. And I'm just going right on top and spreading it out even a little bit more once it's on. See, that's starting to create a little bit of interest in the sky, so it's not just a solid color. And go just a little bit more with the sky. Kind of looks a little bit like wispy clouds. edges don't really matter because I'm going to cut those off after I iron it anyway. So those look pretty messy, and that's okay. Alright, so that's looking alright. I'm going to do some mountains in this one. So I have this pretty kind of gray purple I'm going to start building from the back. So I'm actually just pulling the roving a little bit to thin it out, stretch it out. And then I'm holding it in place and using my single needle to kind of tack that in and shape it. I can make little valleys and curves here. This is a easy way to just kind of hold it in place and then tack it down. And as you probably noticed, I didn't draw anything first. I'm actually not working from a photo. This is just, I'm making this up as I go. Needle felting is really forgiving. That way you don't really have to do a lot of pre-planning, and you don't have to keep track of stitches or anything like you would with knitting or other crafts. I really like how I can just kind of make this up as I go, and it's hard to make a mistake really, because if you're not happy with something, I'll show you this. This is my favorite part. So if I don't like the way that looks, I just peel it right off and it doesn't hurt anything, and I can try again and get it right. So yeah, you can repeat until you're happy, or you can cover things up and it's no harm done. Nobody ever knows that you've made a change or anything like that. So I think that's why I'm so hooked on needle felting. I get a little frustrated with painting sometimes, so I feel like I can't quite fix things. I know it's just a lack of skill when it comes to painting, but needle felting, you really do have a lot of opportunity to get it just the way you want it. This is a really pretty color. I got this this particular one at the Southeastern Animal Fiber Fair, which is in Flat Rock, the Fletcher area, North Carolina, every October. And you can buy all kinds of fiber art supplies, anything you need to knit or to make your own yarn. Of course, needle felting, you can buy a sheep if you want to raise a sheep and make your own roving and fiber on your own. I haven't gotten that deep into it. I really do just like buying the colors independently, and it's like you buy paint colors. I'm just picking and choosing the colors I want, and I can blend them together. All right, so you can see it's still pretty loose, but it's starting to come along. I've got two colors of mountains, so it sort of looks like there's one further behind than the other. Denise, you're absolutely right. It is so much fun, and I think it's partly because it's so forgiving. You don't get down on yourself when you mess something up, and then it's also just very freeing as you can create as you go. I'm gonna catch up a little bit with this big guy just to get it tacked down. You don't really want it to be loose, or at least I don't. I guess there's no rule about that. I prefer it to be pretty tight, so I go over everything multiple times with the needles, and I even have a tool that has, I think it has 24 needles on it, which I might use on a landscape to kind of get it all tacked down one last time before I iron. But I really do like it to be nice and flat, and part of that is just for just so that it stays together, because you have to remember it is fiber. It does kind of want to be fluffy and frizz out a little bit. So I've got 3 layers of mountains here. I got kind of a gray purple in the back, another deeper purple in the middle, and I got a green, and I'm going to switch to the foreground. And the wool I've been using so far is it's roving, like I said, but now I'm actually going to switch to what is called batting. And batting you normally would use to stuff something, to like build up the shape. And I don't know if you can tell, it's a much shorter fiber. It's very coarse. So this would come off of like the leg of the sheep. It's a little bit of a shorter fiber, and it's a little harder to make like yarn and things out of, but it's great for needle felting. And the reason I like it so much is it's just texture. You get automatic texture from it. So all these it's got little nubs of accent colors in there. And I just really like the way that looks, especially for like grass, like what I'm working on right now. I'm primarily self-taught. I had a neighbor friend about probably 11 years ago, told me what it was. She knew I was knitting and doing little handicraft things all the time, making jewelry. She showed me what it was. I had never heard of it. And I just got like a quick little couple minute long demo, ordered some supplies and taught myself from there, which goes to show you how easy it is to pick up. And I actually mostly did three-dimensional pieces. For the first probably 7 or 8 years, I was doing little cactuses and little animal figurines, and the landscapes I only started about maybe 3 years ago, so this is still new for me, but I like it so much that I've really switched my focus. Got another color here I'm adding at the front. This is also batting, so it's that shorter fiber I was talking about, and I'm kind of letting it overlap the green a little bit. I really like the way that looks for a gradient, and it definitely adds depth in my opinion. Got a good background here. I'm happy with that. I just need to tack it down a little bit more, and I think I'm going to come back in and add some clouds and maybe some plants in the foreground just to give it a little more interest. And I kind of know I'm going to lose about 1 inch on each side, so I'm not going to worry too much about doing anything on the edges. Y'all are going to be really disappointed with how easy clouds are. It takes 0 skill. So I've got white roving, so this is it's actually just bleach, so it's not dyed, it's still cleaned and everything, but it's still fairly natural color, so I'm just wadding it up. And you can kind of see where I'm going with this. It already looks like a cloud, doesn't it? So I'm gonna just place it on there, tack it on, and kind of keep it, I want it to be thin a little bit so it's not overly solid looking up here. And I'm just layering a little bit more. Just do one more up here at the top. And then give it a once over with the 4-needle tool. If you ever give needle felting a try, I imagine you will find it to be very relaxing. You just don't even really have to think about what you're doing. It's a repetitive motion. You're making it up as you go. It's very calming to me. And like I said, it's very forgiving and easy to learn, so I definitely encourage you to try it. I'm sure you can buy kits online if you ever get a chance to come take a class at GCCA. Do those several times a year, 2D and 3D. Assuming things are back to normal in May, I've got one coming up in May on a Saturday. I believe it's May 12th, which will be a 2D class. We're doing hoop art. So you could do a landscape like this, or you could do a design in an embroidery hoop. And that's an all skill levels welcome class. Alright, so I'll give you a little progress shot here. So that's how we're looking. I think it's a little bit muddy here between these two greens, so I'm going to go back and just add a little something there. Maybe this kind of chestnut brown, just to, it's probably too much. See how little I'm getting for some of these layers? It's just almost nothing at all because I want the colors to show through. So I'm really just putting that on thinly. And coming back in and tacking it on over top. And again, I think this is kind of like painting. I've got an undercolor and I'm coming back in over top. And I want to see both colors. I think that helped it. I think I just want to add a little something in the very front here, just to kind of look like maybe a plant or something. So I'm going to use this little sage green piece here. Kay, to answer your question, I get most of my needles from the feltedu.com. They have all the different gauges, and you can buy just one needle, or you can buy a pack that has like one of each size if you want. I also get a lot of supplies from Weir Crafts. I think it's WEIR.com. And then if you ever get a chance to go to the Southeastern Animal and Fiber Fair, which is, I think they call it SAFF, S-A-F-F, you can try things there in person, which is really nice. If you're anywhere in the Carolinas, it's worth the drive. I think it's a 4-day event, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. I would much rather choose my colors in person than try to choose from a computer screen. And same goes for the tools. They actually let you try them out sometimes. Oh, and I think I forgot to mention this. This is just a foam felting pad. This is specifically for felting, but in a pinch you could probably use a pillow or some other kind of foam. It's just to catch it. And since I work on my lap, I need something there. And if you were going to work on a tabletop, you wouldn't want to hit the table because you can break the needle, and they are. It's really hard to find them. You don't want to break a needle. And needle felting is pretty inexpensive to get going. A needle is, I want to say $2 maybe. A felting pad is under 10, and the roving depends on where you get it from, but it can be $2 to $3 for an ounce, which is quite a lot. That'll take you far. And if you're able to teach yourself and learn pretty quickly on your own, there are definitely kits out there. You can get everything you need in a kit, and it may even have like certain colors to make a project. So I don't know if you can tell, I'm actually layering the this light green going vertically because I want it to look like grass in the very front. So it's going the opposite direction as the foreground batting that I put on previously, just to give a contrast in direction, because you can actually see the lines of the fiber here, which I really like. I like that directional look. And then I'm also needle felting up and down too to keep that cross grain distinct. I think I need just a little more, and I think it's almost there. These little ones go pretty fast. I do work larger often, and those can take 3-4 hours, and then a really big one I have to do over a couple of days. My largest one I think was 3 feet by 4 feet, and that took a whole week to do. Maybe more than a week, I don't remember now. I don't do that large very often, but this scale is really nice because I can finish it in an hour or less, and this one's pretty simple, so it's going really fast. There's not a lot of detail here. It's a little more abstract and loose. So I wanted you all to be able to see start to finish how it goes together. right, so I think one last pass here. No, I think it needs a river. I'm gonna add one little thing and then it's done. I think it needs just a little stream back here. I think that's pretty. So I'm gonna use just a little bit of this kind of slate blue. That's probably too much. And I'm just gonna pull it thin. And I'm just going right on top. And I think that's gonna be the last little bit. Any other questions? Feel free to ask any questions in the chat there, or if you think of something later, feel free to reach out. You can find me at Once Again Sam on Facebook and Instagram, and I also have a website if you want to look at some of my other work, or also email me questions there. I'm happy to send links out for supplies, or if I can help if you're on a project and you're stuck, I'm happy to consult virtually if I can. And if anybody's in the Greenville area or anywhere in driving distance, I'd love to have you at a class. They are usually about 4 hours long at GCCA, and all supplies are included, so you really just have to show up and I'll show you everything you need. And it's a good time. It seems like a long time, 4 hours, but it always goes by really fast. And it's a great thing to do with, like, if you've got a friend or a relative. It's a good family activity. You can bring lots of different generations together. It's not unusual for me to have a class that's got, you know, someone who's 10 and someone who's 70, and then everyone in between. So it's a really great range. As long as you've got reasonable fine motor skills, you can do this. All right, I've got a stream. I'm gonna do just a tiny bit of a little sandy bar or sandbank here along the side of it, just to set it off. You really could. You could spend all day. You could spend as much or as little time as you want on these. I keep finding little strips of color I want to add, or little shading or whatever. And you just have to decide when it's done. And I have decided. I'm there. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. And before I take it off, I'll just show you what it looks like finished here. And you can see there's still some like little needle marks, so those will come out when I iron it. I'm not going to do that on camera, but y'all can imagine I'm just ironing both sides. The back side definitely needs it, because look at how icky that is. It's really hairy. So the iron will flatten that out, and then I'll iron both sides and then cut the edges, and then I'll mount it in a frame. And I'll definitely post the finished piece. I'll probably post that in my own account, and GCCA might share that so y'all can see it. Yeah, and I enjoyed showing you my craft here. This is my favorite thing in the world to do. Questions, Melissa. So the roving, so I'm actually not, the only felt I'm buying is the background here, and I'm getting that from Weir Crafts, WIER.com, and it's 100% wool craft. It's not craft felt, it's 100% wool felt, and it is expensive. It's not cheap there either, and I've not found it anywhere else, to be honest. But since I'm able to use every little bit, so I've just started doing these like mini ones, so every little scrap is getting used. I don't have any waste there. I just factor it into the price of my work, since I sell all my pieces, so all the material costs go into that. But I think it's not cheap. It's more than $10, maybe $20 a yard. It's a lot, but I think that's what you need to go back there. And the roving is inexpensive, so I do think it kind of balances itself out a little bit. A question about my felting board. So this unfortunately is a custom thing. My husband made this for me to fit the felting pads from the feltedyou.com. So he routed this out, and then he put my business logo on there with the laser cutter, and then every time I get a new pad I just swap it out. So that's what you buy for felting. and actually I flip them over so I get a lot of use out of these, and then it just fits very snugly in there, and I can store my little needles or scissors or whatever else in the little compartments up here. Brand for needles, I get a lot of those from the Felted U and weircrafts.com. And the roving, I go to the Southeastern Animal Fiber Fair every October, and I probably buy a couple pounds of wool, which is a lot. It's enough to fill multiple bags. So I get a lot of it in person directly from the farmers who have the sheep. And then I go to the feltedu.com and weircrafts.com. Yes, Kay, I think he should do a framing demo. He makes my frames, my husband makes all the wood parts. He made these frames. They're really, really nicely made. And I like that it's a family partnership on that. All right, well, like I said, if there's any questions after the fact, I'm available to chat, and I love to talk about supplies and ideas, and so please feel free to reach out, and thank you, GCCA, for letting me do this demo. All right, thank you.